The next piece we're going to bring in is something to actually write the blob up to storage. And again, we're using that same client, just this time we're using the put blob method. Really simple usage here. I'm going to give it the name of the container I want to put it in. I'm going to give it the file name that we set up above. I'm going to give it the actual file object that I'm attempting to upload. And I'm going to assign some metadata to it. Tell these samples were originally for code mesh, so let's change that a little bit and make sure we're saying this was created by the Azure user group, because they rock. All right. So if I've done all my stuff appropriately, I can save this file. Now we're going to go back over and package it up. We're going to have that same command we did before. We're going to run it and redeploy our sample again. Respond again to a confirmation message. And we should be up and running here in just a moment more. Content. Okay, hopefully you're seeing one that seems to have an error in there because I have a typo in my file. Go back and check that out. Oh, I know what I did wrong. The file name should be inside my if block, my bad. Okay. Save that and we'll rerun it and then this error message should go away. Sorry about this, folks. This is why I don't like doing demos. I always do something wrong. Okay, the error message went away. Okay. So now if we browse back out, I've got a file already set to be uploaded. Do our sample app, PHP on the web. Oh wait, I forgot it. Let me go back and get it. And let's upload the file. File uploaded. Simple enough? Let's go out and actually look at that in Windows Azure Storage. Well, if I get back out to my content, we have the Cloud Storage Studio from Cerebrata. It's my personal favorite tool, but you don't have to use it. You can use whichever one you want. Now, if we look at this, I just opened my blob containers in Azure Storage, and I can now see Azure UG, the container I wanted to create. If I double click on that, it shows me that there's a Wednesday in there. And inside Wednesday is the file I just uploaded. I can even view it. I'll show everybody real quick. Actually, I'm going to simplify things. There we go. We're just going to do this from now on today. So there we go. The Windows Azure logo I just uploaded to storage. Simple enough. I can even decide to view this one. And we can view its properties. We should end up seeing in here. There we go. Created by the Azure user group. Straightforward, simple, no problems. Any questions on that so far? Okay. So moving on, let's talk about actually deploying that. So before, I have this /dev equals true. If I change that to false, I can redeploy it. But before we do, let's make sure I stop the version of this that's running. So I'd mentioned Windows Azure allows us to emulate the local environment, and that's where I actually deployed everything to. This is the actual deployment emulator. I can literally see my copy of my service in here and running. But I want to get rid of it. Let's clean everything up. Quick little delete. And now I can rerun my package with a false. Oh, it's saying it's already there, so let's clean that up. Where'd you go? There you go. All right, let's try it again. Maybe I did it too quickly. There we go. Let's clear that whole build folder out. Sometimes it'll do this. There we go. Now we should be able to package it up. So there we have it. Now we have our package and its associated configuration. I can actually go out and redeploy this straight up to Windows Azure. Fortunately, I've gone ahead and already done that. If you look at the management portal, I've got an older application out here. We can go ahead and look at. This is a deployed Windows Azure package. All I did was go out and say deploy. I gave it the package we were looking at here. I gave it the configuration file. It went out and found a virtual machine in the Windows Azure data centers and deployed my service to it. When it was all said and done, I can click on it and go to the application I created. In this case, just to make sure you knew we were talking about this group, I added the Windows Azure user group logo. So let's move on to our table example. Again, a very, very simple form. This one has a couple of field names that we're going to input. Something that's just going to allow me to know the form was submitted and a button. Pretty basic. Let's start putting some meat to that one. Looks like I might be missing some steps here, but we'll get to it. So let's start with a class that defines what I'm actually going to end up creating. In this case, I'm going to create something I'm just going to call sample entity. Pretty straightforward, but it inherits from or implements the Windows Azure storage table entity. This is again one of those classes that comes built in with the SDK. All we have to do is reference it. Let's make sure we pull in those references we had before. Let's copy this over from the blob container, the blob sample we have. All right, so that'll now work. But this entity really doesn't have anything in it. We have to add in some properties. Let's start by declaring a simple field. Find up here. So this is my first field. I'm going to call it Bill. Calling this field Bill because there happens to be a good gentleman in the audience by the name of Bill Wilder. So Bill, this one's for you. Let's add a second field in here. Let's call that one Brian. I happen to notice there was a Brian also sitting in the audience earlier. There we go. We have Bill and Brian. That starts rounding out our fields, or our table definition. But we need another piece of it yet. There's a constructor for this class, and in that constructor, we want to add some details. Let's go back up in here. We're going to paste in some details, and I'll explain what these do. So we have to set up our partition key for this table. Now, in this case, I'm going to grab today's date time and actually use that for the partition key. Now, since I've got that in a string, this entity, sample entity, which inherits from storage table entity, already has a property called partition key. We're just going to set it. It also has a property called row key, and we're going to use another method that's embedded within things called create GUID, just to go ahead and give us a nice and unique little key here. And then lastly, I need to give our name to our table. We'll just call it Azure User Group. Now this definition here, this is everything I need to create a very simple Windows Azure table. It defines it, it sets my keys, everything's right there and ready for me to use. But I actually need to have some snippets down below that create things. So let's start with that. So, just like we did with blobs, we need to have a client to access them. In this case, we're going to create an instance of the Windows Azure storage table object. And we're again going to do that create if not exist thing. Just like we mentioned before, not necessarily a great thing for us to do, but it's going to get us by for what we need right now.